Let's get back to North Korea. President Trump was asked today what he means when he says North Korea has to denuclearize. Here's his response.
It means they get rid of their nukes. Very simple. They get rid of their nukes, and nobody else would say it. It'd be very easy for me to make a simple deal and claim victory. I don't want to do that. I want them to get rid of their nukes.
So can President Trump pull off what no other president could? Here now is Harry Kazianis. He is Director of Defense Studies at the Center for the National Interest. Harry, what do you think? Can he do it?
I think he can, David, but I think the president needs to be very leery of a North Korean Trojan horse, or basically a huge trap. The thing is, the North Koreans have a playbook. It's very well worn. It's been utilized, many, many times throughout history. And what they do is very simple. They offer a lot of concessions. They offer a lot of potential incentives. They drag us into negotiations for months and years. They pocket all the concessions they can. To give you a quick example, the North Koreans demanded $10 billion just to have a summit with the South Koreans.
Right.
So we know this playbook. But I think the president does have some incentives here and things he could do to get a deal. But it's going to be tough.
And you're right. They have pulled off these maneuvers in the past, but that's with weak administrations, whether Republican or Democrats. They gave far too much to the North. And I'm thinking that finally we have a president who is not overblowing. Yes, they have nuclear weapons. Don't get me wrong. They're a threat not only to their South Korean neighbors, but also to the rest of the world. But at the same time, this guy's a punk dictator. If you're tough with him and you find a way of getting the Chinese to work in your favor against them, it's not like pulling down the Soviet Union, right?
Right. And here's what you need to do, David. This is what I would beg the president to do. What he needs to do is to go to Kim Jong-un and say, look, I am not going to sit down in a room with you, and I'm not going to have a summit with you unless you put on the table very concrete preconditions of how you're going to denuclearize. That means you need to put a timetable, whether it's months, whether it's a year, 18 months, of what those steps are going to look like. If the North Koreans, David, will not put that timetable on the table, President Trump needs to walk away, because then you will know it's a trap.
And it's not just President Trump. He's got Mike Pompeo with him. He's got John Bolton with him. He's got General Mattis. This is the strongest defense team that I've seen, perhaps since the Reagan era. And with a team like that backing him, I think they've got a lot to handle, these North Koreans.
They do. And the president has with him an A-team. He has some people who have a little bit different perspectives. He has Mike Pompeo, who believes Kim Jong-un is rational. He said that a couple times. You have John Bolton, who I don't think is going to allow the president to walk into any sort of traps.
No.
And I think they can lay out a very strong message to the North Koreans that they have to lay out a blueprint of how they're going to denuclearize. If they don't, if they want to somehow, just leave it to a summit and for these two, leaders to work it out, it's a trap and you have to walk away.
Now, Harry, you wrote a piece getting back to Mike Pompeo, saying that he could be the best Secretary of State we've had in a long time. And you say no matter what the Democrats say. Why were the Dems then willing to go to the mat and lose in their fight to keep him out of that position?
Simple, because they want to politically wound the president.
But they ended up wounding themselves. They failed. They failed to do it.
It backfired. And to be honest with you, David, I'm glad it backfired. We are in such tough negotiations with the North Koreans right now that if Mike Pompeo's nomination had been torpedoed, I would be willing to bet that Kim Jong-un would have probably walked away because he wouldn't know who he was dealing with. They could have put somebody else in there who'd be very well qualified.
So let me just get it straight. What you are saying is the Democrats cared more about a political win against Mike Pompeo than they do against denuclearizing North Korea?
It's a very hard for me to say, David, but absolutely, I think that's 100% correct.
Wow.